You're doing it right now, without even realizing it. Counting the days, checking the calendar, calculating how long it's been, wondering when it will finally happen. And with every glance at the clock, with every how much longer, you're pushing your desire further away. Because waiting is not neutral. Waiting is not passive. Waiting is a state. And that state, the consciousness of not yet, is what's manifesting, not your desire, the absence of it. Tonight I'm going to show you something that will completely transform how you think about time and manifestation. Time is an illusion, and you've been trapped in it. Every moment you spend waiting is a moment you spend occupying the wrong state, the state of separation, the state of lack, the state of it's coming but it's not here yet. And as long as you're in that state, as long as you're watching the clock, you're creating more time between you and your desire. But when you understand what I'm about to share, when you truly grasp how to collapse time in consciousness, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop counting. You stop checking. Because in consciousness it's already done, and consciousness is the only reality. Let me show you exactly what happens every time you check the clock. You've assumed your desire fulfilled, you've imagined the end, you've occupied the state of the wish fulfilled, and then maybe hours later, maybe days, the thought creeps in. When will this happen? How much longer? It's been 3 days, a week, a month, and nothing yet. And you check, you count, you measure the gap between now and then. But here's what you don't realize. Every time you measure that gap, you're creating it. Because when you ask when you calculate how long it's been, you're not in the state of having. You're in the state of waiting to have. And waiting to have never manifests having. It manifests more waiting. Think about something you already possess. Something that's completely ordinary in your life. Do you check the clock about it? Do you count how long it's been yours? Do you wonder when it will finally be yours? No, because it already is yours. There's no gap, no waiting period, no not yet. It just is. And this timeless state of already having is the state you must occupy regarding your desire. Not it will be mine soon, not it's coming, not I'm waiting for it. It is mine, now, already, done. Here's what most people don't understand about waiting. They think waiting is something they do while manifestation happens, like standing on a platform while the train arrives. But waiting isn't passive. Waiting is active creation. Every moment you spend in the state of waiting, you're broadcasting a signal: I don't have this yet. There's a gap, there's a delay, there's distance between me and my desire. And consciousness, perfect, precise, lawful consciousness, accepts that signal and creates more of it. More gap, more delay, more distance. Because consciousness doesn't care what you want. It only creates what you are. And if you are someone waiting, you will experience more waiting. If you are someone checking the clock, you will experience more time between you and fulfillment. If you are someone measuring the gap, you will experience a larger gap to measure. This is why time feels slow when you're waiting, because you're creating more of it. Now let me tell you something that sounds impossible but is absolutely true. Time is not real, not in the way you think it is. Time is a construct of consciousness, a mental framework, a way of organizing experience. But it has no independent existence. It has no power over you. It has no ability to delay your manifestation, unless you give it that power by believing in it. When you believe that time must pass before your desire can manifest, when you believe there's a waiting period that must be endured, you're creating time. You're taking a timeless reality, the fact that your desire already exists in consciousness, and imposing a delay on it. You're saying, yes, it's done in consciousness, but it hasn't appeared in my physical world yet, so I must wait. And that must wait. That belief in necessary delay is what creates the delay. Not because time is real, but because you've made it real in your consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. Here's the shift that changes everything. In consciousness, in the realm where creation actually occurs, everything exists now. Your desire fulfilled? It exists now. The version of you who already has what you want, that version exists now. The reality where your wish is manifested, that reality exists now. Not in the future, not coming soon. Now, this moment. Already complete. The only reason it hasn't appeared in your physical experience yet is because you're still occupying a state that exists in time. You're still thinking, I'm here now without it, and someday in the future I'll be there with it. But that thought, that consciousness of a gap between now and then, is what keeps you in the gap. As long as you believe there's a waiting period, you'll be in a waiting period. But the moment you collapse that gap in consciousness, the moment you stop acknowledging time as a barrier, the manifestation must appear, because you've removed the only thing that was delaying it, your belief in delay. Every time you catch yourself checking the clock, every time you find yourself counting days, calculating time, wondering when, you must interrupt that pattern immediately, because that pattern is a trap, a hypnotic loop that keeps you tethered to the state of absence. Here's what you do instead. The moment you notice yourself asking when, stop. Recognize what you're doing. You're creating time. You're imposing delay. You're occupying the state of not yet. And instead of continuing that pattern, shift immediately. When will this happen? Becomes it's already done. How much longer? Becomes there is no longer. It's mine now. It's been so long and nothing yet. Becomes time is irrelevant. In consciousness, it's complete. You're not lying to yourself. You're not pretending. You're not in denial. You're choosing which state to occupy. And you're choosing the state of fulfillment instead of the state of waiting. Here's what happens when you truly stop watching the clock. You shift to a frequency, a state of consciousness, where the gap between desire and fulfillment simply doesn't exist. Not because you're ignoring reality, but because you're operating from a different reality. The reality where it's already done. And from that reality, there's nothing to wait for, nothing to check on, nothing to count. It's just finished, handled, yours. I've seen this happen countless times. Someone assumes their desire fulfilled. They occupy the state. They know it's done. And then they start checking, counting, watching for signs, measuring progress, and the manifestation stalls, or disappears entirely. Why? Because they exited the state of having and entered the state of waiting. But occasionally, rarely, someone actually lets go of time completely. They assume it's done, and then they stop looking at the clock. They don't check obsessively. They don't count the days. They don't wonder when. They just live from the end, as the person who already has it. And what happens? The manifestation appears quickly, sometimes shockingly quickly. Not because time sped up, but because they stopped creating time as a barrier. They collapsed the illusion, and the manifestation had nowhere else to be but here, now. Let me be very specific about what this looks like in practice. When you're truly living from the end, when you've collapsed time in consciousness, you don't think in terms of when. You don't say, I can't wait until. You don't say, soon I'll. You don't say, one day I'll. You speak, think, and feel from the identity of someone who already has it. Not as a technique, not as something you're trying to do, as who you actually are in consciousness. I can't wait until I'm wealthy becomes I am wealthy. Soon I'll be in a relationship becomes I am loved. One day I'll be successful becomes I am successful. No future tense, no waiting, no gap, just present reality. Just now, just is. And when you occupy this identity, when this becomes your actual state, not something you're performing, time ceases to have power over you. Because you're not waiting for something to happen in time. You're being something that exists beyond time. Here's the shift that separates those who manifest from those who perpetually wait. You must refuse to acknowledge a waiting period, not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by genuinely recognizing that waiting is a choice you're making in consciousness. Every time you think not yet, you're choosing to create not yet. Every time you think how much longer, you're choosing to create longer. Every time you check the clock, you're choosing to create more time. Stop choosing it. Refuse to occupy that state. Refuse to entertain that consciousness. Refuse to make waiting real. Instead, make fulfillment real. Make having real. Make done real. Not in the future. Not soon. Not eventually. Now already complete. I want you to understand something profound about how this actually works. Delay doesn't exist in consciousness. It doesn't exist in the realm of creation. It doesn't exist in the state of the wish fulfilled. Delay only exists in the state of waiting. It's not that your manifestation is somewhere in the future, slowly making its way to you, and you must patiently wait for it to arrive. That's not how this works. Your manifestation exists now, in consciousness, fully formed, completely present, already yours. The only reason you don't see it physically yet is because you're still looking at it from the state where it's not yours yet. You're standing and waiting and looking toward having. And from that position there appears to be distance, time, delay. But the moment you shift your position in consciousness, the moment you stop standing and waiting and start standing and having, the delay vanishes. Not because time caught up, but because you stop creating time as a distance. Here's what will happen when you truly stop watching the clock. Your physical reality will begin to reorganize much faster than it did when you were checking constantly. Not because you performed some magic trick, but because you removed the resistance. Every time you checked the clock, you were saying it's not here yet. And that statement, that consciousness was keeping it away. But when you stop checking, when you stop counting, when you stop measuring, you're no longer creating that resistance. You're no longer broadcasting absent, you're broadcasting present. And the physical reality, which is always trying to catch up to consciousness, suddenly has a clear signal to follow. This is done. This is now. This is complete. And it manifests. Sometimes immediately, sometimes gradually, but always inevitably, because you stop putting time in the way. So here's what you actually do, starting this moment. Stop watching the clock, not as a rule, not as discipline, but as a natural consequence of truly occupying the state. When you catch yourself wondering when, shift immediately. It's already done. When you catch yourself counting days, shift immediately. Time is irrelevant. I'm living from the end. When you catch yourself checking for signs, shift immediately. I don't need signs. I have it in consciousness. And throughout your day, practice living as though time doesn't exist as a barrier between you and your desire. Not in the future, not coming, not on its way. Here, now, yours. Make decisions from that state. Speak from that state. Think from that state. Feel from that state. Not as a performance, not as something you're trying to do, as who you actually are in the only place that matters, consciousness. Time is an illusion, but it's an illusion you've been making real by believing in it. Every time you check the clock, you strengthen that illusion. You make the gap more real. You create more delay, but you have the power to collapse it completely. Not by forcing, not by demanding, not by trying harder, by simply refusing to occupy the state where time is a barrier. By living, genuinely living, in the state where your desire is already fulfilled, where the harvest is already collected, where the gap doesn't exist because there was never anything to bridge. In consciousness it's done, it's complete, it's yours. And consciousness is the only reality. So start living in the harvest, start being in the fulfillment, start existing in the now, where everything is already complete. Time is an illusion, and the moment you stop believing in it as a barrier, it stops having power to delay you. Thank you and good evening. This is Best of Lectures. I will see you in the next video.